worship band. So, hey, glad that you are with us. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Mike, and I have the privilege of leading this high school ministry here, along with a lot of other awesome leaders and interns. And this is officially our summer kickoff series. Last week, we introduced what we're going to be talking about for the summer, and today is week 1 of an 8-week series that I am pretty much pumped up for, because we're getting back to the basics of who Jesus is and kind of be challenging and getting Jesus on our mind. But before we get into that, I just want to share some really cool and exciting news with everybody in this room. For those of you that have been around for a really long time, know that Ignite is about a place to empower others to use their gifts here for God. So we have tons of volunteer leaders here that give their time to all of you every week. And we also have an incredible group of interns that get together with me weekly, plan out our services, discuss sermon series, and do plan events and all those fun things. But one thing we've never had in our intern team are student interns. And so this summer, I'm really excited to introduce to you guys a couple of our summer interns that are our high school students. And the best way that we felt like we can introduce them to you is via video. So we got one more video here for you guys. Swag. That's pretty cool. Anyways, Holden and Mikhail are going to be jumping in with us this year, or this summer, interning with us, and they just had their first week. And let me just tell you guys, they are taking names, and they are doing work here, and they are planning already an overnighter. That's one of their summer jobs, one of their projects they're going to be working on coming up in a couple months. They're very excited about this. So just to kind of plant a seed, be ready for an all-nighter, be ready to stay up all night, because nobody likes to sleep, right? Like, actually, I love sleep, so whatever, I'll be there, and I'm going to be hanging out with you guys all about that. So today, as you saw in that Jesus is Your Friend video, that's what our topic is going to be this morning. We are going to be talking about that Jesus is our friend. And kind of just to cast the vision for those of you that weren't here this past week, last Sunday, the point of this series is simple. It really is. And it really just comes down to us wanting to get Jesus on our mind, to Jesus to be a part of our conversations with our friends. And if I were to ask you the question, and we're going to be asking this question every week, how would you fill in the blank if I asked you who Jesus is? How would you fill in the blank? You know, most people in this world have actually heard of Jesus, right? Jesus is somebody that everybody knows. You see him on late night TVs. You see him whatever. I was watching The Office last night, and Steve Carell was Jesus, you know. And so, Jesus is all over the place. The Bible is also very clear on who Jesus is. And when we read about Jesus and we read his words in the Bible, he's clear on who he is. But even so, I think if I were to go around this room and I were to take a poll and I were to ask each person individually who Jesus is, I'm pretty sure I would get tons of different answers, different responses that would range all the way from Jesus is the Son of God, all the way to Jesus is this made-up mythical man. I think there was just so many ways that people that would just describe Jesus. And so before we jump into this topic, I would just love for us to pray and welcome God into this time. Would you pray with me? Father, I pray that you would help us see Jesus today. God, I pray that you would help us see how much Jesus loves us. God, I pray that we would be able to see the grace that Jesus offers us, the mercy that he offers us, the love and the goodness that he offers us, God. So, Father, I pray that you would just be with me, that you would empower me to speak the gospel and to share about your son, Jesus. And if there's anybody in this room that doesn't know who Jesus is, Father, I pray that they would meet you today. So with this, God, I pray that you would be honored and pleased with by the time that we spend and what we say and what we do. Amen. Most of us in this room have a best friend, right? If I were to ask you guys who your best friend is, some of you guys could shout out some things. Even SpongeBob has a best friend. You guys know who that other one is? Patrick. They're bonding right here. They're sharing deep emotions, and and they're saying, you do care about me, there's love being expressed. They are basically a team. You know, all of us in this room have a best friend. A best friend is someone that you know better than anybody else. A best friend is somebody that knows you more than anyone else. When you're sad, the best part about a best friend is that they can come and they just walk through hard times and they cheer you up, right? A best friend is somebody that you could say anything to. A best friend is when you want to make plans, they're the first one to call. Let's go to the movies. Let's go to the beach. Whatever. They're the first one that you want to make plans with. A best friend is someone that knows exactly what you're thinking by just the facial expression that you have on your face. Like, you can communicate to your best friend a whole, paragraph of emotions just by a look. And you guys just communicated so much. That's like what a best friend is. We all have those best friends that we can communicate with. They're the first people that you go to that you can talk to. A best friend is someone that you can just text to, or you can make a phone call, and you can just talk about nothing for a whole hour. But you're bonding, right? You're getting to know each other more. Your best friend is the person that you're thinking about as I describe what a best friend is. So if you have a best friend in the room, and I hope maybe if you're with your person and they're thinking of somebody else, I hope this doesn't get weird or anything like that, but because there are a lot of people in my life that think I'm their best friend, but I'm not, but if you have a best friend in the room, I just want to know who I'm talking to. Can you just raise your hand I have a best friend? Raise your hand if you have a best friend. Don't be shy. Cool. For the rest of you, I hope you can find a best friend. This wasn't meant to, I want to encourage you, so just hang in there, all right? This is actually good news. So, I have a best friend as well, and my best friend happens to be the love of my life. It happens to be my wife. Wow. Cameron just stood up. So, Cameron, you're not my wife. Sorry about that. Yeah. But my wife is my best friend. She knows everything about me. She knows the things that make me, and she knows the things about me that I wish nobody would ever find out. She knows things about me that you'll never know. She knows my pet peeves, my quirks, my passions. She knows my burdens. She knows my favorite foods, my favorite music, my favorite books. She knows how I like to vacation and where I like to vacation. By the way, when I like to vacation, I like to do nothing. I like to sit by a pool and read a book because, listen, it is a crime. It is a crime to go on a vacation and want a vacation when you come back from your vacation. So I don't waste my time. When I go on vacation, I want to do nothing. I just want to sit. And my best friend understands that, and she's gracious with me in that. My best friend knows my love language, if you know what I mean. Just saying, all right? This area right here, is about to leave. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. But Jessie knows everything about me. There's nothing that I hide from her. I tell her everything. And the best part about my best friend being my wife is that she still loves me no matter what. No matter how many times I let her down. But here's the deal, you guys, and this is important as we think about our best friends. Even though Jessie is my best friend, even though she knows everything about me, and even though she'll never leave my side on this side of life, she's going to let me down. That's just the truth. That's just how it goes. I'm Jessie's best friend, at least I hope I am. I mean, I'm assuming that I am. Maybe this is one of those weird moments where she's my best friend and she's thinking of somebody else. We'll talk later about that. But I will also let her down. And the truth about that, and the reason why I'm going to let her down, and the reason why she's going to let me down is because we're both not perfect. Jessie's not perfect. She may look perfect. I know, shocker, but she's not perfect, right? And so that's just the reality of it. And so here's the thought that I want to work from this morning. And so if you're going to hit the snooze button on me and you're going to get on your phone or whatever, or you're just going to tune me out, this is the one thought that I want you just to kind of take. And this is how we're going to build our groundwork for this morning. And this is what I want to talk about. And it's the only person to ever live a perfect life on earth that happens to be God calls you his friend. Jesus calls you his friend. And that for me, by the way, is just a mind-blowing reality. It's a mind-blowing thought. And the reason is because I devote so much time getting to know Jesus, understanding who Jesus is, how awesome Jesus is. And he calls me his friend. Here it is right from the mouth of Jesus in John 15:13 through 15. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. Jesus says, you are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you slaves because a master doesn't confide in his slaves. Now you are my friends, since I have told you everything the Father told me. Jesus just communicated to all of us in this room that you are his friend. What does he mean? Jesus defines friendship pretty clear in this passage. He says the perfect friendship is dying in the place of someone else. Anyone in this room have a friend that died for you recently? Took your place? Maybe like pushed you out of a way of a moving vehicle and just took it for you? Probably not, right? But the cool thing about here, guys, listen to this. The cool thing about Jesus and what makes Jesus the best friend that we can ever have is he literally died in our place. He literally took your sin and the death that you were promised through your sin, took that onto himself on the cross and gives you new life. Jesus is the only people in this room, I'm assuming, that ever has really died for people. And that's why Jesus can call us his friend. And that all stemmed for the love that God has for you. That God came down in human flesh, came down to earth, died for us, and loves us, showed us that he really loves us. So Jesus calls us friend. And it's interesting what Jesus kind of says in here. He says, since I have told you everything about the Father and told me you are my friends. Isn't that how we always determine who our friends are? By the level of like how much they open up to us, by like how much they tell us about things, like our deepest, darkest secrets, things that we don't tell anybody else. The things that we tell people, that's how we determine who our friends are. That's how we get to know each other. Jesus says, I have told you everything about the Father. There is nothing that I have hidden from you. Just read the Bible, watch my life, listen to my words. It is because of that I can call you my friend. God has let us into his life so much, you guys, through the form of Jesus. And he gave up his life for you, for me, and for everyone. Now, a natural reaction, and when I was thinking about this and processing this message and writing this message, immediately I started thinking like, is there anybody in this world that God would not consider his friend? Like, we think about the worst of the worst, right? We think about murders. We think about rapists. We think about thieves. Like, would Jesus actually call him his friend? Does God call them friends or enemies? And I just want to be honest, and before we dive into our passage this morning, but mostly good people look down on mostly bad people. So as we go and we view people, as we see people walking this earth, if we determine ourselves as good and we see someone else that we say is bad, we look down on them. And what we do is we kind of put them on this scale that I want to call the sin scale. And what this sin scale is that on this scale, we label small sins, we label medium small sins, medium large sins, medium large sins, extra large sins, and supersized sins. So you and we have this giant scale of what we think are sins and fallen appropriate to what we determine to be bad or good or whatever. And so if we see someone with a small to medium sin, we think, he's a pretty good person. He's nice. He has good morals. Like, if God really wanted to, find that person, there would be no issues. Like, that person might even be a Christian, right? But all of a sudden, if we get to, medium large sins, we get a little bit more nervous, right? We start to say things about that person, or we think to ourselves, we need to pray for her. We need to, that girl's life, she's spiraling downhill really, really fast. In order for God to reach her, she needs to hit rock bottom. That's the only way that God's going to be able to reach this person. And then we might come across someone else that we would classify as a supersized sinner. Someone who commits the big sins. People that you see on Dateline or something like that, they're like, whoa, that is a supersized sinner. And what we do is when we see those kind of people, where we watch those people on TV, we kind of just shake our heads. And we'd be like, God have mercy on their soul. And we just turn around and leave them alone. Nowhere in the Bible, you guys, do we find God sorting between different levels of sin. God doesn't share our rating system. God doesn't have a sin scale where he looks at your life and sees you, oh, he sins a little bit less than this other person. God doesn't share that rating system. Nowhere in the Bible can we see God distinguishing the difference between levels of sin. Obviously, in our world, the bigger sins have more consequences than others. Some sins will get you incarcerated for life, right? Maybe some other of those sins might just get you beat up by a friend or something like that. Some sins that you commit may not even be noticed, more heart sins. But God still calls sin, sin. Nowhere in the Bible does he distinguish the difference. Jesus didn't have a system of rating sins either, you guys. He was willing to accept anyone. He was willing to love anyone. Nowhere is this clearer than the story of Zacchaeus, the tax collector. And that's what we're going to look at today. And Zacchaeus was not just a tax collector. This passage we're going to look at describes Zacchaeus as the chief tax collector. And if we were to put Zacchaeus on the sin scale, like for you and I, this is what we do every day, he would be on the supersized sinner. He would be one of the ones that we would just shake our heads at and be like, he's lost it. He's gone. There's no hope for this guy. And so every time I hear Zacchaeus, I grew up in church, by the way. I grew up in kids ministry. So for those of you that were the same way, maybe kids side or anything like that, you would think of Zacchaeus as this wee little cute little man, right? Like you see the cartoons, oh, he's cute. He's nice. There's even a song about him. You guys know the song, like Zacchaeus was a wee little man was he. They make Zacchaeus to be like this adorable little cuddly person that you can just walk and go get ice cream with, right? That's how our culture depicts and describes Zacchaeus. And the point that I want to kind of get at and what we're going to look at today is that this is not who Zacchaeus was. He would be classified as the worst of the worst. Here's the passage, here's the story right from the Bible. For those of you that have a Bible, a smartphone, I always say for those of you that are new freshmen, by the way, in the room, our phones are our friends, okay? Like Ignite has a rule that you can be on your phone if you're on a Bible app or you're in the notes section and you're writing down all the incredible things that I say or you're taking Instagram video. That's cool, tagging Ignite in it, whatever. Use your phone for good. Don't make it be a distraction. But we're going to be in Luke 19, 1 through 10. And this is the passage, and we're just going to read it together. Jesus entered Jericho and made his way through the town. There was a man there named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector in the region, and he had become very rich. He tried to get a look at Jesus, but was too short to see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to pass that way. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and called him by name. "Zacchaeus," he said, "quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today." Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. But the people were displeased. "He has gone to be with the guest of a notorious sinner," they grumbled. Meanwhile, in other words, time passes, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord and said, "I will give half my wealth to the poor. Lord, and if I have cheated people on their taxes, will give back 4 times as much." Jesus responded, "Salvation has come to this home today, for this man has shown himself to be a true son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save what was lost." Now, we just saw this story. We just saw this dramatic scene here of a man, a notorious sinner, that people would look at him and say, he is a supersized sinner. We just saw something incredible happen, you guys. And before we jump into there, who was here last weekend and got to see Michael Franzese, the New York former mobster? Anybody that was here, maybe you heard about him. Michael Franzese would also be classified, if we were to look at the sin scale, before he met Jesus, as a supersized sinner, right? He told us last week that he embezzled almost $500 million. This guy did a lot. He did a lot of other things that he probably couldn't tell us in church. And if we were to put him on the scale, he would be right there with Zacchaeus. And what we're going to kind of talk about today, and I want to look at the backstory, and why do we say that Zacchaeus is like a supersized sinner? What did he do that was so bad? As I mentioned, and as this passage just showed us, Zacchaeus was a tax collector, and the Israelites of Jesus' day actually looked down on him as a thief. Tax collectors, for those of you that don't know, were Jews who worked for the Roman government and like oversee the region of Israel at this time. Their job was basically to go around from house to house collecting taxes from people. Now, the interesting thing about tax collectors is that they got paid through people giving money for taxes. So the best way that they can go and fill their pockets up was to go and take the normal quota that the Romans had placed for Zacchaeus to go, and he would go and he'd go to those homes and he'd like double the money that they were supposed to give. So Zacchaeus would take more money than he was supposed to. He'd fill his pockets up, and then he'd also give the rest to the Roman government. Tax collectors' own income came from stealing, you guys. And the interesting thing about Zacchaeus, that he was a professional thief. He was a cheat. He was an embezzler who took money from little old ladies on motorized carts who didn't even see it coming. Okay, you guys, there's one thing you need to know about me. Real quick, time out. For those of you that are new in the room, every message I'm throwing in a Dumb and Dumber quote, okay? Sorry. That's just how it's going to be. You pray for me. I don't know. Like, that's just how it's going to be. Yeah. But anyways, he took money from little old ladies, and at some point earlier in his life, Zacchaeus was recruited from the Romans. He would have started as like an assistant tax collector, and after proving his worth, he'd get promoted up through the ranks, and eventually he'd become a normal tax collector, and he did so many things. He must have pleased the Romans in so many ways, because when we find Zacchaeus in this story, we now find him as he's the chief tax collector. He oversees like different like districts. He oversees different little people, little minions that go around. And what happens is he has these people under him. And what is so interesting about Zacchaeus is not only is he stealing money, but the other tax collectors that are under him are also having money, and they're having to like give him a cut of what they make. Zacchaeus is a wee little man, but Zacchaeus is a thief. And he's really rich as well. We're also told in this passage that Zacchaeus is short. And again, this is one of those descriptions of Zacchaeus that are really important for us. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But we don't want to let Zacchaeus' height deceive us. He is totally fine. He has a lot of money. He's one of those guys that you would see, like if I was like lived during that time period, I'd be down in like Israel or something like that, Jerusalem, and Zacchaeus' house would be at the top of the hill. And we'd be looking up at that house and we'd be like, wow, I wonder who lives there. Zacchaeus would have an infinity pool, you guys. He would have this huge barbecue setup. He'd be cooking like brisket. He would be cooking like whatever you want. He would be popping grapes. He would have bonbons. He would have outside TVs. Zacchaeus was this kind of guy. Let's not feel bad for his height. He would have been drinking Arnold Palmer's or something. I don't know, whatever he is. But here's the thing. Everyone fears Zacchaeus. Everyone. They hate him. They absolutely hate him, but they respect him. Back in school, Zacchaeus was the short kid that never got picked, right? Nobody likes to be that kid. I used to be that kid. I never got picked. Zacchaeus was that guy. Now he's fully established himself, and now he's the big man on the block. Back to the story. Rumors are spreading throughout the whole town that Jesus, the promised Messiah people are saying, is coming. Zacchaeus had grown up in the Jewish culture, so he'd be very familiar with the Old Testament. He's very familiar with the prophecies about talking about the promised Messiah. Zacchaeus wants to see who this guy is. Jesus, as we know by reading the Bible, had tons of followers, hundreds of followers, maybe thousands of followers at this time. People are talking a lot about Jesus. And I can just hear Zacchaeus thinking to himself, I've got to see what this guy is all about. There's no way he's a bigger deal than me. There's no way this guy has more followers than me. There's no way this guy has more money than me. There's no way this guy's status is bigger than my status. I doubt Zacchaeus is thinking to himself, man, I hope Jesus saves me today. Look at all these things I've done. I'm so bad. I need Jesus. What would Jesus want to save him from? Like Zacchaeus thinking, save me from my big house? Save me from all the money that I have? Save me from the women that are following me everywhere I go? Save him from what? Zacchaeus wasn't motivated to go find Jesus because he thought his life needed to be saved. He was going to find Jesus because he wanted to get an eye on this guy that also had a big status. So Jesus is coming through the town. Zacchaeus gets word of it. Jesus had a lot of followers. And then Jesus comes down to this town, and people are just everywhere. Zacchaeus comes out. It says he's short. He can't see Jesus. He can't see over the crowds. So Zacchaeus, we can call him Zach, okay? He is innovative. He's smart. He has a lot of money. Smart people, or rich people tend to be smart. So he sees this sycamore fig tree. He says, I'm going to climb up in that tree so I can get my eyes on this guy. I want to see what he's all about. So Zacchaeus goes up to the top of this tree so he can see and climbs it. Now he can see Jesus getting closer. Jesus gets closer. And the interesting thing about this passage is that Jesus looks and sees Zacchaeus up in the tree. Now, some smart person, like in this story real quick, we see, and it tells us very specifically, that Jesus calls Zacchaeus by name. Some smart person once said that the sweetest sound of the human ears is the sound of your own name. It caught Zacchaeus' attention. And he's thinking, how does he know me? I never met this guy. Who is this guy? Why does he want to talk to me? And Zacchaeus is probably thinking along the lines of, well, I'm a big deal. He's a big deal. Big deal people hang out with each other, so this makes sense, right? But the passage says, Jesus looks up in the tree, says, Zacchaeus, quick, come down. I'm coming over to your house. You guys, Zacchaeus is living in the moment. He's thinking to himself, Jesus and I, we're going to have a party. This really popular guy, all these followers, wants to hang out with me. Zacchaeus pulls out his iPhone, calls his buddies, calls all his tax collector minions, says, come over to my house. We're going to party with this guy, Jesus. Have people say he's the promised Messiah. We'll see, right? So that's what they go do. They go hang out with Jesus. But here's the interesting thing. In the afternoon, this time of hanging out with Jesus, something unexpected happens in the heart of Zacchaeus when he was with Jesus. This passage doesn't tell us what was said. It doesn't tell us how long they hang out for. Did they hang out for 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours? We don't know. We can only guess. What did Jesus say to him? We can only guess what Jesus might have said to him. But what we do know, and when we read this passage, Zacchaeus, when he was done hanging out with Jesus, he was a completely different person from when he was up in that fig tree, and by the time he came down, went in his house. One person earlier, another person later. Something happened in the heart of Zacchaeus. Here are his words in verse 8. Meanwhile, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord and said, I will give half my wealth to the poor. Lord, if I have cheated people in their taxes, I will give them back 4 times as much. Zacchaeus, you guys, just said out loud to Jesus and in front of all his little employees, in front of everybody that he's been trying to impress his entire life, that he is going to start over with his life. That anybody he's wronged, anybody that he stole from, anybody that he's taken advantage of, he's going to pay them back 4 times as much. You guys, I can't help but wonder what happened that afternoon. What did Jesus say to Zacchaeus, who was a lifelong taker, to be transformed into a lifelong giver? What were the words that Jesus said? And I think the Bible intentionally doesn't tell us the words that Jesus said to Zacchaeus, because I think we'd get lost and we'd try to develop something and we'd be like, oh, there's the strategy and how you witness to people. The Bible leaves that out. And I think the point of this Bible story, and I think what it comes down to is that it's not what Jesus said to Zacchaeus, but it's who Zacchaeus was with. Zacchaeus being with Jesus changed him. What changed Zacchaeus? Religious duties? No. Church? No. A small group? No. Good deeds? No. Jesus changed Zacchaeus. And one moment with Jesus changes everything about us. Jesus said, salvation has come to this home today. You guys, the truth is, and when we look at this Bible passage, you and I, myself, we're a lot like Zacchaeus. When we look at the life of Zacchaeus, I might not be short, like physically, my stature might not be short. I used to be short, but I fall short spiritually. Just like Zacchaeus, I want to see Jesus, but I can't get past my ego. I can't get past my mistakes. I can't get past my reputation. I can't get past my sin. How do I try to reach Jesus? I'm guilty of this. I climb the religious ladder. I think if I can do things, if I can just go to church, if I can just live a little bit better than my friends, if I can just be an encourager, I can hold the door open for people, if I can just do things, Jesus is going to notice me. Jesus is going to be impressed with me. And if Jesus is impressed with me, Jesus will love me. I think we all live this way, you guys. I'm guilty of it. I have to intentionally come down out of the tree and just be with Jesus. And it's time that we stop trying to fix ourselves up a little bit. Because getting God's attention is not what fixed Zacchaeus. It's not. It was God's mercy and grace. It was God seeking Zacchaeus, and it wasn't Zacchaeus seeking God. Jesus told Zacchaeus to hurry down, and Jesus is telling us the same thing this morning. He's saying, hurry down from religion. Hurry down from self-righteousness. Quit trying to pick yourself up. Only my grace, only my mercy can save you. Come down, come right now, come quick. In this passage, Jesus leaves us and he sums up his very purpose and his very mission from coming to earth. And he says, for the Son of Man, he's speaking of himself, came to seek and save those who are lost. The Bible tells us that there are two categories of people. The first category is those that think they are righteous. The second category of people are those that know they are sinners. Zacchaeus went from thinking he was righteous to knowing he was a sinner. And the only thing that changed Zacchaeus' perspective on who he really was being with Jesus, was being with God, was being with the only one that ever lived a perfect life, was receiving this unmerited love. Zacchaeus didn't have to do anything. The message I want to communicate to you guys today is Jesus is not your persecutor. Jesus is not your accuser. Jesus doesn't look at your life and just see you as a supersized sinner and shake his head in disgust. Jesus sees you as his friend, and he loves you, and he wants to be with you. And he's telling you, come down from that tree, stop running, stop hiding, stop trying to fix yourself up. Just come and be with me. And I believe that God will change you just like he did with Zacchaeus. Here's your takeaway and the words that I believe if Jesus were to be like standing up here and talking to you guys today, this is the exact words I believe Jesus would say to you. And he would say this, is that you belong long before you believe and you behave. That Jesus is for you, you guys. He's not against you. Jesus is not asking for you to fix yourself up. He's not saying shape up. Once you get all your ducks in a row, once you stop and quit your sinning and all that, then you can come to me. He's just saying, listen, you already belong in the family of God. There's nothing you have to do. Just respond to who I am right now. I want to give those of you in this room an opportunity. I mean, I can't give a message like this in good conscience, you guys, and not give some of you in this room a responsibility and the offer to respond to how great God is and the love that he has for you. When Jesus is saying, you belong here. You belong in a relationship with me. Don't worry about shaping up. Don't worry about fixing up. Just come and be with me. I believe God changes people instantly, just like Zacchaeus. I believe that God can change you instantly this morning. But are you guys going to hurry down from your old way of living? Are you going to respond to who Jesus is? The invitation that Jesus has for you to come and walk life with me. Come and be with me. I want to ask that you guys would just close your eyes for a second. Just close out all distractions. Put your phones away. I believe that there are some students in this room that maybe just need to respond to this message. Jesus is saying, come down. Come down from the tree. Come down from your self-righteousness. And just come spend the afternoon with me. If you're in this room and this message has kind of convicted you and has touched your heart in a unique way, you feel like God's talking to you, and you want to respond to Jesus, I just want to ask that you would, in your heart, just say yes to that invitation. This is between you and God. Is Jesus someone you want to be in relationship with? When you hear about this love that doesn't warrant anything, no good deeds, no religious duties, nothing. Jesus is in love with you and wants a relationship with you. I want to ask that you would just say yes to him right now. It doesn't matter where you're at. Just respond. Just be with Jesus. Don't let this moment pass you by. Jesus is here. He wants to use your life. And I hope that you'll receive him as your Lord and Savior, just like Zacchaeus did. I want to pray for those of you in this room that have responded to God right now. Father, you know each student in this room. You know where each heart is at. You know what's going on at home. You know what's going on in our lives. And you're not surprised, God. God, the message here that each of these students belong in the family that you are offering, the family of God. It's not anything they have to do. They don't have to believe everything. They don't have to do anything. That they belong with you, Father. I pray that you would just see those students and where they're at. God, I pray that you would change hearts just like you changed Zacchaeus' heart. You're the same God then as you are today. So, Father, I pray that you would just be with them, that they would have life change instantly. So, God, I pray that in faith. I boldly welcome these students to the family of God. Thank you for hearing us. Thank you for showing us Jesus. Thank you for transforming lives this morning. Amen. For those of you that made a decision, proud of you guys. And I just want to let you know that the first step we believe that followers of Jesus do is to get baptized. We're going to have some baptism weekends coming up this summer, but we'll baptize you whenever. If that's you and you would like some more information, I'll be in the back after our service, and I'd love to give you some information about baptism, talk to you about what that looks like. Jesus modeled that's the first thing believers do when they come to him, is to get baptized. Jesus did the same thing. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to continue in our worship time. Worship is just a way that we can express how great God is. That it's not about us, it's about God. That's why we come here. So wherever you're at, feel free to worship God in any way that you want. You can raise your hands up, you can go to the back, you can go to the couches. We'll have leaders around that would love to pray with you and want to talk with you. And we're also going to be responding to who God is and the relationship that Jesus has with us through communion. And we have communion in the back tables. It's just a simple way that we respond to the invitation of who Jesus is. That we go and we break bread over the table. That Jesus is offering us relationship. He has a relationship with us. And so we'll share in that together as well. I hope you guys will worship with us now.